Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Red Wine and Cigarettes. Cheers, 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 cheers. Sims, where's your glass? Tonight, guys, we are talking gaslighting. It's your girl Popo, it's Lindsay, it's Sims, and we've got Bruce in the building. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you.
Bruce, thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'll try and make it quick. I had a background in the performing arts for 13 years. And from being a cabaret artist, I then got into content creation and journalism and editing. And now I'm basically a health journalist and editor. I'm not a mental health expert. So the things we're going to discuss tonight are just my opinions. I'm not, disclaimer, I'm not a qualified mental health practitioner. So please don't take everything I say to heart.
We are all qualified by life and experience. We are not looking for a qualification on paper because life is what qualifies us in this here forum. Okay, so as I said, we're talking gaslighting. And this is something I'm really quite emotional about. It is at the core of it emotional abuse. And I just thought that it's something that we should unpack. But let me read a definition. So, gaslighting. It's to manipulate someone by psychological means into doubting their own sanity, reality, memory, or perspective. Let me give you some examples because I think it's really important that we all understand what we are talking about. So, just ask yourself if you recognize any of these traits in experiences that you've had with not only romantic partners, but our parents can do it. It can happen in the workplace. It can happen all over the place. So this is what gaslighters do. They trivialize how you feel. For example, oh yeah, now you're going to feel sorry for yourself, aren't you? Another one, saying things to you that they later deny having said. I didn't say I'd take the deposit to the bank. What are you talking about? Thanks a lot for the insufficient funds we're going to get. Right? I know for a fact that I personally have been in a situation with a gaslighter, and how I identified that after the fact was that I would approach said person with facts. I knew, you know how generally as women, we tend to plan the conversation before we approach. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, here's the evidence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to come at this person. We're going to have a conversation. And by the end of that conversation, nothing's been addressed. I'm being accused of being emotional or being dramatic or being crazy, when in fact, I know that these were facts before the conversation started. And they are still facts, except I'm confused. Gaslighting. Bruce, have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yes, definitely. And the problem with dealing with a gaslighter is that what's so insidious about it is that they do it over a long period of time. It's gradual. It's not something that just happens overnight, because in my case, when I was involved with somebody I believed to be a gaslighter, it didn't happen like overnight, where he made me think I was going crazy and like I didn't, and doubting myself and feeling insecure about myself and invalidating my sense of reality. He did it slowly over many days, keeping me separate from my friends and playing little games like, why didn't you turn off the light? And I would say, well, I wasn't even in that room. And he would say, no, but you left the light on. And I would say, no, I promise you, I wasn't even in that room. And he was like, I saw you. You were in that room. Then he would make me doubt in my own reality. So, and it's very scary, because it's one of those things that can go in so many different directions. And often I don't even think, like narcissists, gaslighters often don't even know that they're gaslighters. They don't even know what they're doing. It's like a game or something that they do subconsciously because they want to see what happens,
Yeah. And sorry, Liz, you wanted to say something?
I completely agree with Bruce. What Bruce has just said actually just reminded me of a situation I was in. I've been in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And the abuse started with gaslighting before I even knew what gaslighting is. And I remember there would be things whereby my partner would get angry over something that we were doing normally every day, and all of a sudden turn the tables and make it my fault. And I think something important we need to understand about people who gaslight is that they usually have a problem within themselves, and it's their way of projecting how insecure they are in most situations about you being a partner that is strong, that is self-sufficient, and things like that. Because I used to be blamed for things that didn't make sense, things that he was accountable for, and he couldn't take responsibility for them, so then they automatically became my fault. Like, why didn't you say that the car needed to be filled with gas? I'm thinking to myself, but you were driving the car. Things like that. I think I just wanted to touch on that point, that I completely identify with Bruce's situation.
Sibs, any thoughts on what's been said so far?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with what everyone has said. Should I say this? No, I'm not going to say it. Okay, I'll say it.
Say it. This is the Say It platform. Say it.
I grew up with a gaslighter, right? Okay. So I lived a lot of my life watching this person gaslight everyone else around them. But because I grew up a recluse, so I used to sit in my room reading a lot. I wasn't with everyone, but I would sit and watch this behavior. So I wasn't given this behavior. But I watched it being given to everyone else, and I grew up with a gaslighter. So for me, when I start seeing the signs in another person that they're starting to gaslight, I pick up very quickly, and I will say, don't gaslight. And then I'll go, I don't even know what gaslighting is. And then I'll go, let me tell you. And then I'll tell you, you do this and you do this and you do this. When I have done this. That is gaslighting. And that is emotional abuse. It's also interesting what Bruce said about they might not realize that they're doing it. I've realized that a lot of people that do evil things, gaslighting is evil. I'm not going to even do this. Gaslighting is evil. People that do evil things might not realize that it's evil. And then when you call out, give victim. But they've been doing it for so long, they might not even realize that they're doing it. It's a game. Also, it's that projection, as you guys have said, of whatever's happening inside their insecurities onto another person. So gaslighting is very dangerous, especially when you do it to I'm not going to say weak people, to people who care and who are sensitive. Then you will mess that person's life up forever. You can. It's easily. I've seen it.
But I don't even think there's anything wrong with referring to a human being as weak. I think we've all been weak at some point. We've all entered into a relationship when we had no business being in a relationship. When your self-esteem was low, when you got into a relationship because you were lonely, not because they were necessarily the best choice, and it really becomes dangerous for the person who enters a relationship under those circumstances and they find themselves with a gaslighter. Because as you were saying just now, gaslighting is emotional abuse. I will definitely take it that far because it's abuse. You are literally, I was doing some research earlier, and literally a lot of people who go through gaslighting for long enough, it literally leads them to insanity, where they question. Yes, insanity or suicide, exactly. It literally becomes a mental health issue. So we laugh about it. Yes, gaslighting, these mother F's, these whatever you want to call them, you know what I mean? Because that's what they are, you know what I mean? And I hear you saying that a lot of them don't know that they're doing it, Sibs. You just said a lot of them don't know that they're doing it, but it comes from somewhere. So I'm going to give this back to you and be like, where do you think that stems from? Because it's a dangerous thing. So you're saying maybe they don't know, but where does it come from? And how do we unearth that? And it's a dangerous thing, Sibs.
So my prime example of a gaslighter has been gaslighting since they were possibly 8 years old.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's not an adult thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing that they were doing from childhood, based on how they were treated within their household. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They were unhappy with the ways that they were treated in where they grew up by their parents, and could not vocalize that unhappiness.
Yeah.
And that what they felt was abuse, right, from their parent.
Yeah.
And then took that and put it onto other people. I believe that gaslighters have got, it starts from somewhere. There's something that happens to you. And it can be from a young age. And the reason I use this example is because I saw it from a young age. I'm talking about someone who was 8 years old, gaslighting other kids and adults, where I just be like, ooh. But also looking at their background and the way that they grew up and the things that happened to them, I see where it comes from. It's an outlet. So that's why I say that they might not realize that they're doing it. Yeah. Because it's an outlet. It's a means to, I can't retaliate here, so I'm going to retaliate here. And then they carry that for the rest of their lives with whatever relationships that they have, because it's their way of protecting themselves. So how do I protect myself? I gaslight because I need to be in power.
Got it. So it's like a coping mechanism. It's a mechanism for making sure that I am always in control of any situation I'm in, because I probably felt the lack of control in situations in my life prior. Maybe I was abused. Maybe I was what's the word? What word am I looking for? Maybe I was suppressed. Maybe I just felt like I was always under someone's thumb. And now I'm going to make sure that in every other interaction, I'm the one who's taking the lead. Right?
That's it.
So Bruce mentioned earlier, he was saying that a lot of narcissists, and in my research about gaslighting, it literally said that most people who are gaslighters are narcissists. Okay, and it said a person with a narcissistic personality disorder may project an inflated sense of self-importance, exaggerate their achievements, respond to criticism with anger, use others for personal gain, be highly critical of others, become envious and jealous easily. I read that and I was like, yeah. But then I was also just like, that sounds to me like a hurt person. That sounds to me like a person who has probably been through a trauma of sorts, and this behavior is a projection of said trauma. I'm not saying that anyone should stay in a situation where they are being gaslighted, but do you think that maybe there are ways of us addressing it within a relationship and maybe moving towards the healing of that person as their partner, if they are willing to go on the journey with us?
Okay, I'll respond to your question and I'll say what I was thinking in response to what Sibs was saying. In terms of healing it in a relationship, for me personally, that's a bit difficult. I'll say something that might not sound very nice, but I don't think it's my responsibility to heal you from whatever it is you came from, and then you ended up gaslighting me, because now I am then the collateral damage for everything that has happened prior. Yes, I can advise, I can say you need to seek counseling and try and figure out the roots of it, but it is really not my responsibility to then try and figure you out or try and make things a bit easier for you, because that's the danger with being in a relationship with a person you didn't grow up with. It's a person you've met and you're trying to build a partnership with them, and now because you end up tiptoeing around them. You end up trying to figure out, okay, what will make life a bit easier for them, because this reality is clearly a bit difficult, but then I'm enabling it. I'm enabling the problem, and I'm allowing the person to think that whatever it is they do, they're not responsible for it. So I'm actually removing you completely from being accountable for all your actions. And then you end up taking on, which is something I definitely did in the relationship I spoke about earlier, where you end up taking a responsibility for things that you have nothing to do with, where you also start questioning and almost going crazy, and you're like, did I? Am I the one who was wrong? And I think also going back to what Sibs was talking about, growing up with the person, then we ended up talking about things that happened in our past. I think it's also important for us to understand that possibly gaslighting is something that we need to be aware of when we deal with children, where be it our nephews, nieces, our own children. And we need to stop enabling behavior where a child does something wrong, and we're just like, no, it's fine, leave them, they're just a child. Because then what that does is, I can do things that are wrong and I don't have to take responsibility for it. And then I grow up, and when I do things that are wrong, and Lindy was there, and she's like, I don't understand. Why on earth did you not pick the child up from school on time? The child was supposed to be fetched at 4 o'clock, you fetched them at 6, and they'll be like, no, but I was busy. Why weren't you available to pick the child up? You know what I mean? So to them it makes sense, simply because when they were a kid, they were not taught to take responsibility.
I think you're highlighting something that, I wasn't going to go this direction, but I think it's relevant right now. With everything that's going on in our country with femicide and I think something that we're missing is our responsibility in how we raised the men who we now have in our society. I really do. This is not an excuse for femicide. It's not an excuse for GBV, but I think a lot of the time we like to look at the symptoms and instead of looking at the root cause of specific things. But that was a detour. Bruce, as someone who has been gaslighted, how did you find that it affected you? How it affected you? Did it erode you? How did it erode you?
So when we first started the relationship, I was in a very strong and quite empowered place in my life. And this is the thing about it is, it's, the gaslighter works in the realms of microaggressions. It's little things, and in my particular relationship, this was with someone who was actually a mental health expert. And so it was someone who in their profession was outstanding, but in their personal capacity in relationships, not necessarily so much. And it's because the gaslighter is trying to control, as you mentioned. I could not agree with you more when you said that's what they want to do. And I think is from a wound around feeling out of control or losing control. So my understanding is that the types of people that are drawn to each other are like, you very rarely find two narcissists or two gaslighters together. It'll always be an empath, somebody who's very sympathetic and giving, and maybe even to a fault will end up with a narcissist or a gaslighter. So for me, it was about owning and empowering myself with the knowledge that I was attracted to someone and pursued a relationship and a connection with someone who gaslit me and got me to a point after a year and a half where I no longer sympathized with myself. I only sympathized with him. And even for a year after we broke up, when I eventually started seeing another counselor, I saw another therapist, and only then, when in my sessions with him, did this guy explain to me, you were gaslit, you know, you were, because I was still sympathizing with this guy.
What is that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is what makes it so complicated, is this person genuinely loved me. This person still loves me, you know, and I genuinely loved him. These things are not, you know, as cut and dried as we'd like them. They're messy. Relationships are messy. And the problem with being gaslit for me is that, you know, you hear about people who are in GBV relationships and they get beaten to a pulp, and then they leave and their families take them away, and then they go back to the abuser, and everybody's like, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy? And I think I have an inkling. I could never know what that's like, because no one has ever, he didn't lift a hand to me, never physically touched me. But I kept going back because I kept thinking, oh, I must have been wrong. He must have been right. He was right, you know? And it got to a point where my opinion had been shrunk so small and become so insignificant that I didn't care about my own opinion. And I wanted to be with him because his opinion had mattered now more than I mattered.
More than yours.
And that's so dangerous.
Yeah. Actually,
That's why we go back.
yeah, I was actually looking up on what happens to people when they are gaslit, like what the signs are, you know, and it speaks to what you're saying right now. It's basically said no longer feeling like the person you used to be, being more anxious and less confident than you used to be, often wondering if you're too sensitive. And I think the one that stood out for me was always having to explain for your partner to other people, like always having to defend them, you know, because what happens is that people in our lives see it before we do, right? And instead of taking the input of people that we trust, we pull away from these people that we trust. If we feel like I've defended this partner of mine so much and you're just not falling into line, so now I'm going to dispose of you. And you find that a lot of people who go through a lot of gaslighting end up being really isolated, you know, because the way this relationship works doesn't make sense to anyone on the outside. You know what I mean? Because you literally shrink. You literally shrink. You know, and I'm speaking from experience here. I'm speaking about Balesa, who became a raging alcoholic. No, yes, not raging. You know, it was within my home. You know? Definitely using alcohol to cope because I couldn't deal. I knew something's not right, but I also couldn't imagine not being with this person. I knew this person isn't treating me well, but I'm also just like, but who's gonna want me? You know, because my confidence was in the gutter. You know, it's almost like they like a what are they called? Like a pedophile. Like they groom you, you know, little by little, inch by inch, you know, and then suddenly you find yourself in this place where you're trapped and you're just like, how the crap did I get here? But you're stuck. And you really do feel like no one's gonna want you. Okay, so guys, we'd like to read your comments. We'd like to hear your stories about being gaslit. Is it gaslit? Gaslighted? What is it?
Gaslit.
I'm gonna go with gaslit. You know, please share your views with us. We are your girls, we are your boy and your girls. You know, we want to hear your opinion. This is about engagement. This is about sharing. Yeah. So Sibs, what do you think? What do you think? Sorry, I've completely lost my thought.
It's okay. So, it's okay. I have something to say, anyways.
Oh, great.
I have watched. You know, I'm listening to this whole conversation. I watched Bruce. I met Bruce through the gaslighting. Like when he was being gaslit, and I knew him after the gaslighting, right? Okay. So I've been through the process, and it's so funny because he's not the only person that I saw through the process. There's someone that I know that is going through the process currently, and they called me the other day and they said, I'm just tired. And I said, what do you mean? I beg your pardon? Palisa?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And this person said to me, I am just tired. And the more they spoke, I realized that they're doing things to avoid the gaslighter. So the gaslighter is in the same household as them, right? But everything they do, they want to avoid this person that lives with them in their house. It's not even the gaslighter's house, it's their house, right? But we were having this conversation and they said, you know, when I get home, I go to my room, I put my laptop on, I watch some TV. And I'm like, in your house?
In your house?
I don't watch TV. The big TV that I bought in the living room, because I just want to avoid things that make me go, am I stupid? Does that make sense? And this person said, sometimes I feel like I'm stupid. And I said to them, you are not stupid. You know that. They said, I know that. I know, because I go out into the world and the world says, you are amazing, you are not stupid. And then I walk back into this house and I feel like I am stupid. And it was what hurt me the most, right? Can I tell you what hurt me the most? We were on the phone for a good 30 minutes. And when they walked into their house, I heard them greet said gaslighter and then say to me, and we were mid-conversation, and say to me, all right, Sibs, we'll chat again. You know, like, it's almost like a shutdown, like if this person knows that I'm talking to you, because Sibs is known to have a strong personality and all of these things, and what? Don't take that. They shut themselves down. They said, okay, Sibs, we'll chat. And we were mid-conversation, like really like a conversation that had nothing to do with that person, but just a conversation. And they shut themselves down because now they are in the presence of the gaslighter and they are scared of what that person will pick up from our conversation that they will then use against them. That is scary, guys. That's scary.
It is scary. Okay, I'd like to read a comment. So Pepe says, it's the hardest thing to do. It's basically Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I feel like a lot of people may feel like that's dramatic. I'm not sure that everyone knows what Stockholm syndrome is. I think I'll just explain. So Stockholm syndrome, it happens with a lot of people who are held hostage or kidnapped, where they eventually find themselves in a situation where they feel affection for the person who has kidnapped them or has abducted them or is holding them hostage, and they feel safe with that person, but really it's an unhealthy navigation because you were abducted. You were held hostage. And what happened was I think maybe the survival instinct where
coping mechanism
it becomes normal. Yes, coping mechanism. Where it becomes normalized and you're just like, okay, this is where I'm at. Doesn't seem like I'm going nowhere soon. So you is all I got. So I guess I will love you back. You know what I mean? And then when someone comes to rescue you, you're already so conditioned that you stay. You're just like, no, this is because you've become that conditioned. It becomes a coping mechanism. Linz, do you think it's that drastic? Do you think it's that deep? Are we being dramatic? Are we being extra? Are we being emotional?
I actually think it is that drastic. I think the only reason why we would question whether we're being emotional or dramatic or not is because people don't understand what it is. I myself didn't understand what it is for a really long time. And I think you, like Bruce said earlier, that a person who's a narcissist or a person who's a gaslighter, one and the same or whatever, would be attracted to an empath, and an empath would then be attracted to someone who's needy. Let's be honest, empaths are attracted to people who are broken. I use that term very loosely, broken, or people who have issues. And it does make sense that a person who is going into a relationship, possibly for the wrong reasons, possibly because they are not in the right space, but they feel lonely and you're an empath, you would then attract a narcissist, attract a person who's potentially a gaslighter, and then wants to save them from themselves. And that's how the concept of having Stockholm syndrome comes into play, because you're now thinking, you can see the person because you love them. I mean, let's not lie to ourselves. When we've been gaslighted, most of the time, when you're gaslighted, you are completely in love with the person gaslighting you. It's difficult to be gaslighted for a person you don't care about, because you're literally like, dude, you're crazy. What are you talking about? Get out. You know? But when you're in love, and there's a certain part that they tap into, your vulnerability. Sibs touched on it earlier. Where there's a part that they know about you where you're vulnerable for them, and they touch that part, and you almost try to envelop them in this cocoon of love. Like, I can help you come out of whatever it is you're going through, and I can save you, and all of that stuff. So Stockholm syndrome, comparing the two, is really not dramatic at all.
Okay, something just popped into my mind while you were speaking. How many of us here, with a show of hands, feel like maybe we have had or currently have hero syndrome?
What's hero syndrome?
Okay, hero syndrome. What Lynn was talking about. This ain't me now. Me in the past.
No.
Because I think it's always important to look at all sides of everything.
Yeah.
Right? So gaslighters exist, but they are people for gaslighters. People who have hero syndrome are people for gaslighters. I found that my relationship choices when I was younger, in my 20s, I found that I was definitely usually drawn to men who are limping or broken, or they have potential, but I know that I must water their seed for this potential to come forth and bloom.
Yeah.
So I will ask again, how many of us here feel like maybe we have a touch of hero syndrome?
Or had.
That's what I'm saying, though. So what I'm saying is, yes, they exist, but I think that in every navigation, right, in every relationship that's unhealthy, abusive, or there are two participants, right? You are only going to fall prey to a gaslighter if you are prime prey for a gaslight.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe you can't. Yes, okay, Sibs, I wasn't done, but carry on. You can interject.
No. I'm putting my hand up so that when you're done, then you can come to me. Go.
Okay. So what I wanted to say is, I think that for myself, right? For myself, once I went through this gaslighting situation, I was like, okay, Balisa, you were in the situation not once, not twice, not thrice, not 4 times. You're the common factor in this here situation. What is it about you that makes people feel as though they can treat you like this, and you fall in line and commit to it and participate and cooperate with it? Do you get what I mean? Because gaslighters are always going to exist. They're not going to be eradicated because we feel like they're not good people. You know what I mean? They're not. So, Bruce, what do you think it was in you that kept you in that situation for that long?
So for me, it's like a give and take. So it's not just a case of me recognizing this person that I wanted to rescue, because so you call it hero syndrome. I know it as rescuer, the rescuer archetype. Okay. And he played the same card with me. So he was like, those people don't get you. Those friends of yours, they don't really understand you. Your family, they don't know you like I do. So you shouldn't be spending time with them. So it's like he made me feel on one hand, like I was very special and like he got me. And at the same time, like I was so messed up and there were so many things wrong with me. And I was so lucky to be with him. I mean, it gets worse. Like I'm going to drop some serious tea here. So,
drop it, spill it. Can I take it?
Please do. So several years ago, I was diagnosed with a mental illness or a mood disorder. Which it's very difficult accepting and coming to terms with having a mental illness, but I did, and I had an amazing psychiatrist, and I went for counseling, and I really walked a journey with it, and I found the whole process that you go through, finding your meds, your mood stabilizers, the whole thing, and I got there, and I was like sorted, and I was finally in a comfortable place in my life. Then this guy and I started dating. And he was like, no, I'm a mental health practitioner. You do not have bipolar disorder. Wow. They were wrong. That psychiatrist was wrong. And all those people were wrong. There is nothing wrong with you. I will look after you. I will control you. Stop taking your meds. I know what I'm doing.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, because I didn't want to take the pills. I didn't want to have the illness. So I listened to him. I stopped taking the pills and I was like, this man knows me. He loves me. He's going to take care of me. 3 months later, not even 2 months later, the pills started wearing off. And then I was getting manic. And and then he was like, stop talking at me. You're so manic. Calm down, you know. Or I would be so depressed I couldn't get out of bed for like 2-3 days. He's like, get up, get out of bed. What's wrong with you? Completely invalidating the fact that this is a physical condition as well as a mental condition.
100%.
I really lost my mind because the whole time I'm like, but this is bipolar. I'm behaving like a bipolar person. This is normal for bipolar. You made me stop taking my meds, and now you cross with me because I'm acting like I'm bipolar. So
he
this
was
is
a long game, basically.
Yeah.
So
Bruce.
And it's scary because, this is why I don't even think he consciously sat and planned this out. It was like, he would say, you know, ask your friends to come over for dinner, you know, and I would invite my best friend for dinner. We have a wonderful evening. Then the friend leaves and he's like, oh, your friend is so lovely. You know, that's so cool. Then next week he'll be like, you know, when that terrible thing happened, could you phone that friend? Was that friend there for you? And then I'm like, no, actually, that friend wasn't there. And you know what? That friend actually doesn't have any nice thing to say about you. Or he would find little things. And then one day I woke up and there were no more friends. And then he did it with my parents as well. We went to my parents for the weekend. We had a wonderful time. And then we came back and he was like, you know, your father drinks too much. And, you know, your mother's very distant. And, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh my God, all these people, there's something wrong with all these people. I'm so lucky to be with them.
No.
And like I said, I don't think he got up in the morning and he had like a laundry list. This is the shit I'm going to do to Bruce, you know? But these are the things that he did do over a 2-year period. And I'm just so lucky that I subconsciously realized what was happening and I ended the relationship. But even then, I didn't know. It took me a year later to be like, what?
Exactly. Yeah.
What I let this man do to me, you know? And I've got to take ownership. I've got to take responsibility. I allowed that to happen.
Yeah. You participated in it. I'm not saying you deserved it, but you participated. No. But here's another thing that they're really good at. These examples that you're giving now, here's what I guess later will do, darling. They will, you know, garnish the truth. You know what I mean? It's so close to the truth that even you were like, okay, I trust this person. I love this person, but you've got a point about them not being there when I was down and out. You really were the one who was there. Yeah. Okay, I haven't read a comment in a while. Let me put a comment up from Nikita Fredericks. She says, self-love is so important. Feeling whole and not believing you need another person to complete you is the best way to avoid a narcissist. They can smell a void a mile away and thrive on emptiness. We need to fill ourselves to the brim so another person can compliment us instead of completing us.
I love
Nikita,
that.
you've got no. Nikita has a definite point there, but the thing is, we're not all there. You know what I mean? We're not all there. I can say that I've been a person who's not all there. You know what I mean? And yes, you shouldn't be waiting for someone to complete you or fill your cup. As far as I'm concerned right now, I'm just like, I'm complete. You bring 100, I bring 100. There's no 50-50. I'm not lacking. The happiness, the everything I need is there. And I'm giving you the opportunity to top it up. You know what I mean? But not because there's a lack. You know, so, but not everyone is at that place. Sips?
So, okay. It's a bit of a sidestep, but it's, it's got to do with what we're talking about, definitely. And it's something that I think that we have an issue with as a society, and specifically as the black middle class society, right? And I think a lot of people are going to be like, yo, guys, our parents, our mothers, not our parents, our mothers are being gaslit by our brothers. Our mothers are being gaslit by our brothers. Y'all are quiet because you know it's the truth. It is a middle class black problem. I need everybody who's watching this, to record this and show it to their mothers. Don't say anything. Because our mothers are being gaslit by our brothers, who then go gaslit their wives and their girlfriends and everybody else. But because it works on our mothers. It works on our mothers. They are. It's so painful for me. It's one of the most painful things, because it's a story that all of us have to tell. Every single black middle class girl has got a brother who gaslights. If they've got a brother, the brother's gaslighting the mother, right? So, right? Am I wrong? Am I right? I'm right.
Right.
And that person then goes on to gaslight. I thought it was very important for me to say that, because we don't speak to our brothers either, right? We run away from them. We know how to avoid them because we can see the crap they're doing. We're like, nah, I ain't talking to that guy. Look at how he treats my mom.
Yeah.
So I know it's a bit of a sidestep from what we're talking about, but I thought it was important for us to say before we get to I'm seeing the time going, but it's so important, because our brothers are gaslighting our moms. Our moms are miserable. Sorry, guys. Excuse to go like
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. I feel like we weren't going to go there, but it was an important space to go. And right now we might just get in trouble, but we will carry on. Lindy.
I'm not going to get into trouble. I know I'm going to get into trouble. I know that a brother of mine is going to watch this somewhere on the internet and call me out. Like maybe in 2 months on my birthday. In fact, on my birthday, my brother will call me out and be like, yeah, you went on the internet. Whatever.
In response to that, I mean, I don't have anything long to say, but I think going back to what we spoke about earlier in terms of it being enabled from childhood.
Yeah.
Sibs, you're spot on.
Yeah.
Our brothers do gaslight our mothers, and our mothers, because they're soft-hearted and is the word empathetic. English just disappeared. towards their boy children, enable it without them realizing it. And therein lies the problem, where being a gaslighter or a narcissist is enabled from childhood, where the mother does not teach the boy child. And let's not just make it the boy child. Girls do gaslight too, to a certain extent. Let's not make it a gender thing. Gaslighting is gaslighting. It's not gender specific. But in response to what Sibusi was saying, where a mother, because she has a soft spot for her son, will allow him to get away with a lot of things. and therein is the seed that is being watered called gaslighting.
Yeah, but guys, let's just be honest here. Can I just be clear about the fact that we are not man haters? We are man lovers. But this gaslighting thing is mainly a male problem. And it's mainly a male problem because of how we raise our boys, which is what I'm going back to that thing I was speaking about earlier on. I feel like society as a whole, we have been quite irresponsible about how we raise the male, how we raise the male child. We teach him to be entitled. We teach him that he doesn't have to be accountable. We teach him that responsibility in certain areas. So yeah, we say to him, you must provide for your family but responsibility in terms of looking after their partner's emotional and mental health is optional. As long as she has a nice home to live in, and you're providing for her, it's okay. You really don't have to deal with the other things. She's just being extra. And if she does bring it up, we'll have a family meeting and put her back in line.
Exactly.
Right? That is what the F we're doing. Okay? So we need to take responsibility. It is not by mistake that it is men who are the perpetrators of this gaslighting ish. We are raising these men. We are creating these men. And we need to take responsibility and do better.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I just got emotional.
You're sitting here like, yeah.
So I wanted to just add to that because I agree 100% with what you're saying, but I think it's because society as a whole is gaslighting boys with toxic masculinity. So what is gaslighting? It's invalidating emotion. It's invalidating experienced reality. So a little boy who is sensitive, has emotions, and feels something, and is then told, "Grow up, be a man, be stronger." That is gaslighting. You are, and what we do when we do that is we actually we are surgically removing their capacity for emotion and empathy. When a young boy child is taught to dislocate himself from his own emotions and to no longer have sympathy for himself, he cannot have sympathy for anyone else. That's why he will do terrible things to other souls. And as a boy who was very much the victim of a lot of toxic masculinity, a lot of bigger, older, uglier boys beating my ass up on a regular basis, I noticed that they were threatened by me because they were terrified of my vulnerability and my sensitivity, my creativity, which I could not control. I'll be honest with you, if I could have suppressed my sensitivity and my emotional quality, I would have. I was at boarding school. It brought me a lot of pain. If I could have hardened myself, if I could have made myself unemotional and cold and narcissistic, I would have had a much better experience in my childhood.
Wow, Bruce.
Lucky for me, I couldn't get it right. So I get to be a more, fully functional man in society. But this is the thing. We all gaslight when we play in to that idea of a man must be like this, or a man, or are you man enough? The moment we say to a man, you're not enough of a man, we gaslight him. Because he is enough of a man just purely being a man. Whose standard of what a man is he should be. He must determine those standards. So this is the problem. It's like this vicious cycle of this toxic masculinity. We treat boys so terribly. We dislocate them from their emotion. They become these toxic men who then have no empathy, no consciousness and can do these terrible things to other human beings because they have been disenfranchised from themselves.
what we do, Bruce, is we only nurture what's masculine in them, but we don't nurture the nurturer in him. You know what I mean? We only develop the aggressive side, the strength, the aggression, and we fail to nurture the thing that still makes him human, the thing that still makes him loving, the thing that still enables him to navigate an emotional relationship with his partner. That's outside him being a provider and we are staying in a security estate, so my family is safe, so what more do you want? You know what I mean? Instead of developing the communicator in him, instead of developing the comforter in him, and that's where we're failing, and that's why we need to do better, guys. We need to do better, guys. We can't. Yes, Bruce?
I was just going to say, though, that props need to be given where props are due. And that's something that Lindiwe and Palisa, I haven't seen how you guys are with your kids and how you interact with them. But Sibs, this is something I really feel you are doing very well, my friend. The way that you are raising your son. I know that as a parent, you sometimes get frustrated and irritated and whatever the case may be, but I've never seen you subjugate him in his masculinity. I've never seen you demasculate or emasculate him, and when he's having an emotional day or he gets sensitive or whatever, I've seen you hold space for him. And that's so moving for me to see you do that. It's so beautiful because I'm looking forward to the future that your son will be an adult in.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can speak. I've got a girl child. I can speak to her as a mother to a boy child as well, because we're basically raising our kids together. But what I will say for Lindiwe as well, and for Sibs, because I know Sibs and I've seen Sibs be a parent as well. These two women, as you said, hold space for their boys. They allow them to express the things that they're not able to express out there, and make them feel as though that expression is comfortable, normal, healthy, essential to their mental, emotional health, and it's okay. And I feel like if more of us could do that, we would raise a generation that navigates relationships in a much healthier manner. We are asking too much of these young men when we are not equipping them.
Yeah.
So we need to do better, not just be mad at them. You know what I mean? We need to be mad at ourselves as well, because we had input and we had a huge contribution to that outcome. Sibstig, you want to say something? We are 52 minutes in and we're meant to be 45, but I'm going to let you speak because I feel like spirit and energy is moving.
I'm literally agreeing with what everyone is saying. And I think it's very funny how the end of our conversations for the past 3 weeks always end up with us as what's the next step forward. And then what I love about our next step forward is always us as parents, us as adults. Bruce as a uncle to two beautiful little girls.
Yeah.
What's the next step? So how do we then? It's little girls, right, Bruce? How do we then move forward? And a lot of it, I think we can't fix it now. Does that make sense? So we can bitch and moan about how it is now, so that the guys know how we feel, or the girls know how we feel about certain issues. But I think what's important is moving forward. How do we raise our nieces, our nephews, our sons, our daughters, so that they're not in 20 years doing this show?
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's my piece.
Wow, this ended up being really, really emotional. For me.
Hello? I think I'm the only person left.
Hello. Okay. I think we spoke too long, but it was definitely a beneficial conversation. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us. You know, I think as much as we started speaking about gaslighting, we really stepped into a lot of issues that are a lot more important, and that we can all draw from. You know, so let's maybe think about how we move forward. Let's maybe think about how we do better. Let's maybe think about how we get better outcomes by being more intentional about how we raise specifically the young man. You know, because there is an area where we are dropping the ball. Absolutely. There's an area where we're failing. Because if we were winning, we'd have different results. The results are evidence of the quality of our work and our input. And now it's been 56 minutes. So, Bruce, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Your input was so valuable. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, for sharing your opinions, for sharing what's personal to you with us. We really appreciate it. We really do. Sibs, thank you so much. You're awesome every week. Lynn's awesome every week. Me, awesome every week. We love sharing with you guys. We love interacting with you guys. Next week, not sure who my guest is, but we'll be speaking unconditional love and what that means and what it does not mean. Red wine and cigarettes. You thought it. We said it. Good night. Night.